So those thoughts of a second wave, they can be really overwhelming. A lot of us are doing everything we can to keep our families as safe as possible. What is the first step when we think about a possible second wave of coronavirus coming our way?
One of the things I tell people is try to learn from the things that happened during the first wave. So things you may have done really well, and the things that maybe needed a little bit of tweaking a little bit should be your first focus, which is because that will help dictate how you're going to improve into various functions of the second wave as well.
So get together with the family, kind of figure out what we did right, what we did wrong, what can we do. And we do disaster planning for things like earthquakes and fires. Why is it so important that we have these plans in case of emergency?
Well, disaster plans give you a predictable set of steps to respond to any kind of emergency. And one of the things it does for families, too, is it gives them the power back. Because otherwise, the disaster really can control you. And what disaster plans do is it gives you the series of steps that you need to respond to it in a predictable manner, so that every single time you know where you're going to go, how you're going to handle it, so that it doesn't overwhelm you.
That's a good point. You know, my sister brought it up at the start of coronavirus. It's like, we need a plan. Like, if one of us gets sick, how can we help the other? So that's a great point. Now, you have an app that helps develop these type of plans. Can you talk about how that works?
We do. We have it's called the Disaster Hawk app. It's available on iOS as well as Android. And for the very first time, it allows families to create custom disaster plans in just minutes for their families, for their small businesses, for their pets, and allows them to create disaster plans for all different kinds of emergencies, wildfires, COVID, for earthquakes, for anything that Californians may face.
That's good to know. A great resource there. What about supplies? Do we stock up on things? I believe some people probably already have a lot of toilet paper, Patrick.
Yes, they certainly do. As a matter of fact, there seemed to have been a run on stores for a while on that. But one of the things I've told people now is that supply chains have basically recovered at this point. So now is the time to get what I like to consider the 10 to 14 days of supplies. You don't need 30 days or 90 days worth. That should be just enough, not only for COVID, but for wildfires as well.
And these unexpected circumstances, they are very tough to deal with. Any advice on how to respond when we face that kind of adversity?
Well, psychologically, one of the things that people should really do is identify habits and routines that make you feel powerful. So I tell people, if you're an exerciser and you're a gym rat, go exercise. If you have hobbies, continue to do those things. And other sort of self-care practices, people do yoga, people do whatever they have to do, because what it does is it helps you overcome those feelings of helplessness, and instead really gives you the power back to say, I'm empowered to do the disaster response that I know is right for me and for my family.
I like that. Take the lead. And Patrick, you help plan for all kinds of disasters. Right now, COVID-19, that's the constant threat and the thing that we're worried about. But we can't let our guards down because, you know, there have been other things like natural disasters, earthquakes. They're not going away and taking a break.
No, they're not. And in fact, one of the things I've told people is that disaster plans you may have written prior to COVID probably need to be changed now, because if you think about it, if you're running a small business and you have a shelter-in-place plan where you have all your employees going into one room, that's probably not a great idea now. So you're probably going to need to split people up. If you have evacuation areas, you're going to have to make sure that large crowds don't gather, because COVID is going to change the way we respond to all different kinds of emergencies.
Yeah, that's a great point. So schools, and places of employment, other organizations, they should really be paying attention to those disaster plans and factor in COVID-19 while making their COVID-19 plan.
Absolutely, and in fact that they should be doing a complete revision. They should have somebody going page by page, making sure that every plank of their disaster plan actually fits the realities of what we're seeing on the ground, because as you know, COVID is changing almost on a weekly basis. The way we're responding, the way that public health is asking us to review these plans is going to change constantly. So people need to be always opening it, always reviewing it, and always seeing how they can improve it with best practices.
Right, make those updates. You can't just leave it after you make it and never come back to it till you need it. So you got to keep updating. And quickly, your app, is it easy to use?
We have made this the easiest disaster preparedness app ever done, because we want people to be able to create plans quickly, easily, simple questions, custom planning, and then a family is all done in 10 minutes.
I love it, Patrick. Thank you so much for joining us today and offering these tips on getting prepared for disasters.
Thank you very much for having me today.